So please welcome up on the stage next for our guests for the Leave No One Behind Closing the Digital Inclusion Gap panel, which includes the fabulous clicker, Jess Wilson. She also told me, fun fact, she was a fairy as her first job. And yes, I'd travel with a magic wand. She's the CEO of Good Things Australia. We have Manisha Amin, CEO of Inclusive Design Collective, and hosted by Tim Marshall, co-convener, Australian Digital Inclusion Alliance. Unfortunately, Carol Bennett was unable to attend due to an injury. She's okay, but wish her a speedy recovery and thank her for her time in preparing for the panel today, and Tim will do his best to fill it in. Importantly, this panel is brought to you in partnership with our sponsor, PN Digital, Marketing for NFPs, and their team are very excited to deliver their sold-out workshop, Smart SEO and Ad Grants, Unlocking NFP Growth Through AI and Automation.
Thank you. Gosh, hard act to follow. Thank you so much, Alana, for your talk. And hi, everyone. I'd also like to offer my acknowledgement of country and ancestors, past, present, and emerging. Target 17, if you're not aware of the Closing the Gap strategy, is all about improving access to information and services for First Nations people, and digital inclusion is a huge part of that, and I think it's worth acknowledging the great work of the First Nations Digital Inclusion Advisory Group, which is a federal government program and delivered a really important report in December last year that offers a whole range of contexts, some really important recommendations, short, medium, and importantly, long-term, for improving the situation for digital inclusion among First Nations communities that we actually think could have a broader bearing across the community more broadly. Thank you so much for having us on this panel, and of course thanks to Info Exchange and everyone who's put the hard work into organising the conference today. My name's Tim Marshall. One of my roles is co-convener of the Australian Digital Inclusion Alliance, ADIA, or ADIA as it's sometimes called. Humbling to be up here with such a great group of speakers who are far more comfortable being on stage than myself. Unlike Alana, I don't aspire to be a public speaker, but here we are, and all power to you, and good luck with that. ADIA is a shared initiative of over 500 business, government, academic, and community organisations all working together to accelerate action on digital inclusion. We're really grateful for the support of Telstra, where we are today, Google, and Info Exchange as well, and David Spriggs is our chair at the ADIA. Together, we've got a vision to reduce the digital divide, to stimulate better economic and social participations by all Australians, or as many as we can. We advocate for a national imperative for action on digital inclusion and the value of a whole range of organisations and initiatives across what is a really vibrant and collaborative sector. In fact, it doesn't get a lot of recognition, but there's a lot going on there. And it's fantastic already today to see such strong recognition of digital inclusion with our speakers and panellists today, and I suspect we have a really well-informed audience here that we're speaking to, so no challenges to offer some insights that people find of value, although I'm sure with these guys here we have no problems today. Today on this panel we'll be discussing some of the things that go into addressing digital inclusion, that is the many interconnected challenges of affordability, accessibility, and the ability, the skills and the literacy to participate in the digital world. To do that, we have Jess and Manisha. We're also, as our host mentioned, scheduled to be joined by Carol Bennett from the Australian Communications Consumers Action Network. She can't be here. They do some great work, particularly around the affordability of telecommunications and connectivity, and we'll try and relate some of that, our understanding of that space today. Both Jess and Manisha are highly active in the digital inclusion space and have so much to offer. On the positive impact where it matters and the benefits if we get that right. Minor piece of context. You may be aware that digital inclusion's been tracked nationally since about 2015 through the Australian Digital Inclusion Index, which is also supported by Telstra among others. There's an update due on this later this year, I think. The most recent data from 2023 still helps to highlight the challenge. Some of the figures are startling. On the definitions of the ADII, and others may have different, but on this, nearly 10% of the population is highly digitally excluded, and a further 14% are in the broader excluded category. Add that together, it's 24% of the population, more than 6.5 million people who lack the resources to participate properly in digital life. And furthermore, we know there's significant gaps across a whole spectrum of disadvantaged communities, First Nations, people with disabilities, people with lower levels of education, lower incomes, and so on, spaces where everyone in this room is familiar. If you think about how much of everyday life is online, that's, and the pace of change, that's a big deal. Finally, on ADIA as a way of introduction, we believe there's a huge need and an opportunity for a coordinated national approach to digital inclusion. There isn't currently, and you can expect us to be saying more about that in the coming weeks now that we know the shape, thankfully, of the new federal parliament. So, to our discussion. I'm hot up here. Far out.
We're going to get through this.
We're going to be fine.
Totally.
Should I stop reading?
Yeah, totally.
I'd like to get a bit of personal reflection and as a scene setter to start with, maybe. Manisha, to you first. You've got a great background across not-for-profits, focusing around inclusion for diverse communities, amongst other things, but particularly around the way we design technology for diversity. Can you give us a bit of an intro on what you do and what drew you to the issues of digital inclusion in particular, and a bit of a sense of what makes digital inclusion so important when we think about all the systems and infrastructure that we all need to get on to participate in society?
Yes, big question. I think that in terms of what we do, we actually look at how we put the right humans in the centre of all of the conversations we have around digital inclusion. And the right humans, for me, are the humans that missed out on the third industrial revolution. So who are the humans that we really didn't cater for the last time around? And what are the insights that we get from them? And the reason, actually, I'm going to answer this question completely differently to the way I thought I was.
I think that's great.
But I am petrified. I used to be petrified, actually, of what technology would mean for me, and particularly for the young people in my life, and really scared of what, going back 10 years, I don't even think I was thinking of AI, actually, but I was just thinking of technology in general, and really worried about what that would mean. That worry has lessened for me. And the reason that worry has lessened for me is that I realised that actually the more we listen to the people who lost out the first time, the more likely we are to get this right this time. So we have this opportunity today that we've never had, actually, in my lifetime at least, which is to really go, okay, well, what world do we want to build? What does that look like? And the reason I say this thing about the people who missed out the last time is that we've created systems and processes that work for us the way we are now. And one of the things I'd like to challenge us all on is not the use of technology to bridge the gap for the people who have missed out this time, but to actually think about how they can actually inform what we do better next time. How do we become more human? How do we become more inclusive? How do we change the world and the things that we've done in a different way and actually make a step change? So that's what I'd like to do. If you want the story that I was going to tell,
Go for it.
that's not the, I guess, as positive piece, but I was in a meeting recently, and this happens often actually. It was with a foundation for a large organisation, lots of people who really want to change society, and we were talking about the world for young people and what needed to be done in terms of productivity 2.0. And the people I was in this little workshop group with were talking about the things that they see with their young people at home. And how young people are far more socially savvy, how young people today are more entrepreneurial, have a different view on privacy. The day before, I'd actually had dinner with a friend of mine who is a counsellor in a school that has a low decile school in New South Wales. And she was just talking about the difficulties in her school for the Year 7 kids, because they went through COVID in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. They don't know how to read, right? And their English teachers, they had 6 different English teachers in the space of 6 months. So when you're looking at that cohort there and this cohort here, and these people want to help community, but the insights that they're getting to help community are not the insights that we need, right? They're not necessarily the insights that are useful when we talk about building an app or bridging the digital divide. The way they think about that, or we think about that, I would include myself in that group, are really fundamentally different to the needs of these young people here. And this is the challenge that we're working with.
Great. Thank you. Great reflections as a way of introduction. Thanks, Manisha. Jess, Good Things run some terrific initiatives, and it's great to have you as part, and both of you, in fact, as part of our steering and governance group at ADIA. And you've had really strong involvement around the digital champions that we've just heard about. I'm curious to know from you if there was a moment or an event in your work that really brought home the value of digital inclusion. What's driven you in this space?
Yeah, look, I'm not a techie. I always say that I'm not a tech person. I'm a social worker by training. That's kind of where I started my life, is ensuring people have access to the services and the support they need to live the life they want to live. That's where I come from. And so I'm actually going to go back to before I started this job, and I took a year where it's now called the career break. I thought it was just anyway. And I went travelling all over the world. My brother is an artist. He's a football tipper. And he also has an intellectual disability. And so we stayed in contact really easily with WhatsApp, because he has the access to a phone, and he has, the ability to pay for it through, support from my family. And so we were able to stay in contact really closely over that time while we were away. He has a whole lot of health challenges as well, so can't travel very much. And so every day I'd wake up and I'd have a text from him saying, "Where are you today? Please send photo and video." And so I would send him back these photos of where we were in the world and all of those kinds of things. So that ability to stay connected with him during that time was really, really important, not only for me, but for him seeing, the broader world that I'm experiencing that he doesn't have that opportunity to do at the moment. So, and when I came back from that trip, because as I said at the start, he's an artist, and so he had painted pictures from all our trip from all over the world, and there was an amazing exhibition that I walked into, and there was my trip through his eyes, and so I think the opportunity that technology creates to build people's connection was really the thing that made me go, oh, actually we need to be part of this, and that's what I suppose Good Things is all about, is making sure that people have the skills and the confidence to be able to do that. And working with the digital champions has been absolutely brilliant, because as you heard from Alana, she's already created her own website, right? This is not, we're talking about people who already see the benefit of using technology, but may have not had the opportunity to learn how to do that in their everyday lives. And one of those stories from the digital champions as well, one of the other people, so Jerry, who is a magician, right? So we have magicians, we have Paralympians, we have actors who have acted in feature films. We have such amazing people as digital champions. But Jerry has created his own YouTube channel to show his amazingness to the world as a result of being able to learn how to use tech through this program. So I just think it's not about the tech skills. It's not about having the tech. It's about how people use it once they have that, and that they have access to the services and support, and to be part of the community like everybody else, right? Because so many other people have YouTube channels. Why not Jerry? And I tell you what, you should watch it because it's awesome.
I have to say, having watched the digital champions in action. I learnt more from one session with the digital champions than I have in many, many sessions around AI and tech safety, because they were practical, they were informative, they were funny, and they kept to the point. And it wasn't around policies, it wasn't around processes, it was actually around what to do when I go into a shopping centre,
Yeah.
you know, and what to do when I go to the airport. And so I think it's this thing as well, when we design from the edges, we design for everyone, right?
Yeah, I'm really interested in that human element as well, and I wanted to come to you, Manisha, because you've done a lot of research work on, you know, what people think and understand about their specific needs, including around the inclusion compass in your
Yep.
in your previous role with the Centre for Inclusive Design. So, what are some of the key aspects of inclusive design if we're thinking about the accessibility of tech from an inclusion point of view?
So if we go to that piece of research, and I think when we think about AI, what I loved about this piece of work is that, you know, as a small charity at the time, we didn't have a lot of funding. And how many times are you asked what mainstream Australia thinks about something, or how many data sets or data points do you have? So what we did was the question we had was, how inclusive is Australia? We used the Sustainable Development Goals as our benchmark, and we cross-referenced that against age, race, gender, ability and other forms of human difference. And then we used technology to do a scan of the conversations that were in the media in that year. And what we were looking for was, and through that AI scan, we were looking for where the big conversations were, the intersections, and also where there were small conversations that data sets often miss out on. We had 750,000 conversations in that, and it was through publicly available information. But what we then did was we sense checked that with people, with researchers, with community groups, and individuals who would never have been part of those conversations. So one of my all-time hero people was this woman. She was in her, I'd say, 60s or 70s, petrified. She'd been scammed already online, petrified of using her computer, was worried she'd be homeless in her next 10 years because she was renting, and was worried about her pension, and also worried about leaving her home. So she was one of the people we had that we interviewed. And what we said to these people is, this is what we've heard online. Has Australia got it right? And if so, why? And if not, why not? And what are they missing? You know? So it was a really interesting way of really bringing the human into the centre of a technology conversation without needing to be a technology person to do that, right? Like, so we don't need to know how a bus works. We don't need to know how an engine works to know that we need stop signs. Okay, it's the human interface around it. And too often I think the capability and the training is this notion that we need to understand how machine languages and machine models work in order to make decisions. Actually, we need to know how to make decisions and what we hold to be really important and critical in order to do this work. So that's where I think the human piece can actually sit as well. Is that the answer you would?
Well,
or,
any answer is a
well,
good
is
answer.
that kind of what you were?
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Those sort of reflections, and I guess Jess, looking at the Digital Champions, another program I think that's great that you've put together, the Digital Sisters. You know, other elements of they've both been quite successful and have led to some really interesting insights and outcomes in their own right as they've been running. You know, how would you reflect in the context of those programs with what Manisha has been saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is it's always about putting the person in the centre, and I think that's what we definitely try to do in developing any of those programs, is what's really important to people. So, I mean, for Digital Sisters, it's supporting refugee and migrant women. We've co-designed this program with some federal funding with 20 organisations to look at what really were the needs of refugee and migrant women as part of their digital learning journey. And I mean, what we discovered through that process is, of course, it's really diverse. You know, like there are some people who it's the first time that they have touched a phone. They've never touched a phone before. So actually even turning the phone on was really, really important piece of learning for them. And we had other people who were software developers in their home country that had come here but didn't know how to access the systems of Australia. And so I think that combination, really never assuming that there is one way for everyone, and I think that's the model that we have at Good Things, is that we work with the community organisations that are already supporting the people and support them to be able to do the work in the way that suits their community and the people that are in front of them. And I think one of the things that came out of that program was this real like, oh, hang on a minute, AI could be helpful here, particularly for this group of people, because it's about translation tools, right? So the use of translation tools were really important. And so we were able then, through some support from Microsoft and Telstra, to expand that to looking at AI literacy. And you know, through some of the research we did more broadly, we looked at, you know, well, people were saying, well, actually AI literacy needs to be its own thing. It needs to be separate from digital literacy because actually it's new and it's a combination of digital literacy, media literacy, information literacy, a whole lot of literacies, you know, all lead up to being able to have AI literacy. And then we delivered the programs, created some fantastic fun online games, things like that, to help people learn about AI, what it was, because 70% of our community partners said no one was asking about AI. So we had to start at the very start about what AI is. So we did all of that. And at the end of that program, we discovered that actually people were developing digital literacy and AI literacy together. Yep. You know, it's actually, you can't separate them out. And so women were saying, oh my goodness, I'm so excited because I have sent my first email. And they could do that because they were able to help use translation tools to help them understand how to do that. So they were using AI, and they were using AI in their phones to think about how to get around and all of those kinds of things, but actually they were doing the digital literacy at the same time. So even when we're designing, we're going, well, this is what we think it will look like, and then we listen to the people who are actually experiencing this and going, that was wrong, actually. And so building that AI literacy, digital literacy journey together now is the real focus for us, to make sure that people are learning about the thing that they want to learn, because nobody learns how to use technology in a linear way. They learn it for the outcome that they're trying to seek, the thing they're trying to do, what's the tool that's going to help me get there. Yeah. So it's actually not, okay, I need to fill in a government form, so now I need to be able to do these things. It's actually, I want to get to that place, so I need the tool that's going to help me do that.
Actually, sometimes the problem that we think needs to be solved is not the problem that people need to have solved as well. So it's often, you know, when we work with companies or organisations, they'll be saying we need an app to do this faster, we need to be able to fill out this form faster. When we talk to communities, they're actually going, we don't want stigmatisation. We don't want to be targeted the same way. We want to, and sometimes we want to actually communicate with people. So we did some work with, and this is just a passion project, but it was really working with Aboriginal Deaf Mob in remote New South Wales. So people who don't speak Auslan and don't speak English either. And we thought that what we would do is capture language using technology so that community could so that police and justice systems and health systems and people could actually communicate more effectively. And what we found is that's not what people actually wanted, and it was actually also very difficult to do. And the people who found it really interesting were the technology companies and the government, where that data might end up. What we ended up looking at is actually communication bridges and communication tools. So help me translate this document. Using language and vernacular that I use, help me focus the impost on the communication to the other person, so that actually the avatar isn't an avatar that the government agency has. The avatar is actually an avatar that the deaf person has, and the government has to communicate with them, with their avatar. So it's changing the power balance around. We would never have thought of that. Never, you know. But talking to this one person who ended up becoming, that's who I design for. And this amazing woman has had impacts with both justice and health system, lives in the middle of nowhere, has to use her child as her interpreter when her mobile phone doesn't work. Right? But it's incredibly, she has so much information that often we don't get access to unless we do this right, and we take the time to listen. And I loved Liz Yeo's comment about the amount of time it takes. With this project, I'm really fortunate. I don't have any funders. We just do it when we get some funding for it. It's taken us 3 years to get to where we have working with this community, but I don't have to finish on a particular date because no one's telling me I have to, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you. Like all the panels today, we've got the ability to accept your questions from the floor as well. I'm sure there'll be a Slido panel that goes up onto the screen in a moment. I do just want to come back to those when we often describe digital inclusion. We're talking about those 3 pillars. One is the access piece, and certainly designing services, designing websites, is a big part of the access piece. So is being able to access an internet service, access a device as well. Those 2 elements are obviously extraordinarily closely related with the affordability piece. There's various activities underway in the connectivity, affordability piece that are, and I would argue actually that the telecommunications sector has come a long way in 20 years so far as coverage and availability of services, and that's great. There's a great universal service principle behind the NBN, which is terrific. On that piece, ACAN, and Carol's not here today, obviously, is doing some really interesting work to advocate for some form of concessional broadband product that can be rolled out more broadly across communities, and it's important that we support that work as well. NBN itself, I know, is doing some interesting work around social housing, connectivity and connectivity skills. Things like Wi-Fi mesh networks are a really important piece that have been shown to be some success, and we think will be rolled out further through the work of the First Nations Digital Inclusion Advisory Group, which is terrific. These things are all really interlinked though as well, right? So if people are able to connect, they've got a device in their hand, they're more rapidly going to pick up the skills and then get the benefits and be able to progress to a higher level. This also means they need the right device. A phone is great. It might help you to do some basic admin, communicate with people, but to really gain additional skills to get into the workforce, to go further, it's probably a different device. Some people here probably may be aware of some work that's been done over the last few years around a national device bank. This is around a refurbishing type ecosystem that can be developed to help out with device distribution to people who can't afford them or access them right now. There's already a commercial sector that operates around that. It's successful. It exists. I've got a refurbished phone in my pocket,
So
I don't mind saying. Jess, you've been involved in that. It'd be great if you could give us a bit of an update and a description around the National Device Bank.
I mean, we've heard it today, thankfully. Doug was spruiking it earlier, so fantastic to hear. I mean, I think, we know that, it's really important for people to have the right device that's affordable. And, there are so many millions of devices every year in Australia that are sent off for refurbishment and then sold overseas. That's often what happens through the ITAD, the process. So, we need those devices to be given to people who are digitally excluded here in Australia so that they have access. And so the whole idea about National Device Bank, this is happening already. There are different organisations that do small amounts of refurbishment of devices and distribution of those to people in need. And I think this, for me, is about systems change. Like, it's actually about how do we make sure that not only are the governments and corporates donating devices that they already have to be refurbished and then distributed, but that those people, when they get those devices, have the opportunity to be able to learn how to use them. Because we know what can happen, and this happens all the time, where we see this through Be Connected, which is supporting our older Australians. You know, people give people a device for Christmas, they don't help them how to use it, and they just leave them on the shelf, right? And that definitely happens for a whole range of people. So we need to make sure it's the combination of having access to the right device, having access to data, so whether that's, you know, a broadband that they can afford, or school student broadband's been fantastic. Brilliant that we've reached 30,000 families, but gosh, there's such a huge need for that. We need to keep that expanding, but then that there's skills. So I think making sure that we've got that combination, working with Work Ventures, who does great refurbishment, Good 360, who's really good at connecting easily with not-for-profits to get them the things that they need, and for us working around how we make sure people have the skills as part of that. That combination as a partnership is something that we're really passionate about trying to get established in Australia. And we've, like, you know, Good Things in the UK has already done it. You know, we've already had a national device bank over there. There's 20,000 devices out there that's been used. They've had the London Police donate devices. So, you know, if the London Police can donate devices, wipe them, be happy with how they're wiped and then distributed to people, then we can do that in Australia. We can get governments to donate them in Australia. So I think, you know, what we really need is that kind of, you know, people to give us some funding to start up that process, because longer term, it can be a sustainable model. You know, we can make the money from it so that it doesn't have to be funded long term. And I think, you know, that will change the system and make sure that everybody is included in helping to solve that challenge.
Yeah, that's great. I choose to be an optimist. I think most people in this room may share my worldview, and I think that on the accessibility piece, there's great momentum. There's a sort of an industry around design, if I can say that. It makes commercial sense to have things that are accessible. On the affordability piece, with things like the device bank, with things like affordable internet products, I feel like we're going to need to keep on it.
Yep.
But there's going to be programs that exist to do that. I feel that the pace of technology change and the requirements that we have about people engaging makes the ability piece, the skills, the literacy, the interconnection, as you put, with media literacy, and as the questioner up here puts, you know, with confidence gaps and all the issues around that, you can quickly draw, you know, it's about day-to-day engagement. You can quickly draw sort of a slippery slope towards the arguments around loss of confidence in public institutions and all of these things that come with it. We feel that this is going to really require a significant weight of our attention over the coming years. Have you got some reflections on that too?
Yeah,
Jess?
look, I think one of the things we've often heard, so Be Connected has been funded now for 8 years, which is fantastic, supports older Australians. Apparently being older is over 50 these days, so
It's appalling, right?
many of us in this room, that's a slight challenge, but also brilliant. Because I think, you know, what's really important is, and people, when I'm talking to them in governments particularly, like, oh, you know, we'll fund you for the next few years, and then I'm sure it'll be solved by then, won't it? Because, you know, people will come through and they'll have already had those skills, so they won't need it. But, you know, the pace of change of technology is so significant that actually, you know, in our research last year, 68% of people said they're really struggling to keep up with technology. You know, so, and that's just standard population. So if people don't have the opportunity to continue learning and to learn the way that makes sense to them in the spaces that they feel comfortable, then we're going to have a challenge. And I think, you know, Be Connected's fantastic, but we don't have ongoing funding for that beyond 2028. We don't have ongoing funding for Digital Sisters beyond the end of next year. Digital Champions is funded until the end of next year as well. Like, this is fantastic, as I think David was saying before. We're really good at creating these amazing programs that work, and we can show that they work. 88% feel more confident to use technology. Like, that's fantastic, and yet they're not funded beyond that time. So I think, you know, making sure that we've got accessible digital skills programs for everyone who need it is really, really important. Some of that's through work, you know, for people who have work, that's great. For people who are not in the workforce, then that's a challenge, and you need to have digital skills to get into the workforce. So we need to make sure that you know, skills and confidence piece is really essential. And you know, there are other organisations working on that. The Future Skills organisation's doing some great work in that space as well. We know the government's committed to ongoing, you know, free TAFE for everyone. I hope that you know, there's an opportunity to expand what that looks like in terms of digital literacy as well. But I think, you know, we need to make sure that it's targeted at the people that really need it.
Yeah, that's true. And I think one of the things we're really advocating for, and where we've done some work with the Future Skills organisation actually, is actually a piece of infrastructure that's needed, and that's a common language or a framework around the way we define what digital skills are or digital literacy is. Not just from a workforce perspective, and certainly not just from a technical workforce perspective, those things are important and they do exist, but from a really foundational and introductory piece. Therefore, that thing needs to also be able to help people to self-propel in their learning, to upskill as they do, assuming they've got access and affordable and all those things, and then to pay regard for future technology as it emerges.
I think access is a really interesting issue as well. I think digital inclusion shouldn't mean analog exclusion, right? So a lot of organisations and governments will say digital first. I would argue that we need every channel first, and that the only way we get to digital inclusion is because people want to be there, because the service is better, it's more streamlined, and it helps them in a way that analog isn't helping them. And that mix is really important. Sometimes people go, well, why would we do that? And the answer I give is, well, the research says that. You know, that people with complex needs have complex issues. And some of those complex issues haven't made it to the data sets. So you sometimes need humans to solve those complex issues. But the more that those issues are solved, the more people will migrate to something that's easier for them to use. And so I think that's really important. And the second part around that access piece is when we did our work with our Aboriginal community, one of the things that came out of that was this matrix, which I've now started using for everyone and in all of our projects. And what they came up with was 4 key criteria for any piece of digital anything. And it was, talk to me first. Don't talk to my interpreter, don't talk to my guardian, don't talk to somebody else, talk to me. You know, even if it's through the screen, talk to me. Second was cut red tape. Okay. The third was cut red tape to show me what my rights are. Tell me what my rights are so I know what I'm entitled to. And the last one was help me feel confident that I can do this myself. Now, if we used that criteria for anything that we did in the digital space, I guarantee, and we tested it with the people who are least likely to be able to access that technology, I guarantee we would have more digital inclusion across everything we do.
I'll come back to you on this question that stimulated a thought from the audience here, because I know you've been passionate around the value of accessibility, or the important role that business can play and the corporates can play in this space as well, not just government supporting, but through practice and good design. The question up here was, how can we ensure how can we be influencing digital inclusion into the workplace? But I think that I'm asking you to expand that more broadly to sort of industry.
If we're talking about it in a specific workplace, the 3 questions that we often use in the work we do, so if you're in a company, regardless of where you're in that company, these come from the inclusive playground movement. And you know, you can build this awesome inclusive playground, but there's 3 key questions. So this was designed in Australia because the universal design principles take a long time to remember, but they came up with, can I get there, can I play there, can I stay there? So you can have a great playground, but if people can't access it, if they can't get to it, if there's no buses, if they don't have someone to drive them there, then the playground is useless. Okay, so in a company that could be anything from inclusive recruitment to actually being able to work in a particular area. The can I play there is where we all focus, right? That's actually, does the tech work? So does the playground equipment work? Can I actually use it? And if you can't get to it, it doesn't make sense. And then the last one, which we never focus on, or very rarely focus on, except through Harmony Day lunches, is can I stay there? Do I feel safe? Do I feel welcome? And do I feel included just like everybody else? Okay. And so I guess my offer to people, and we do this with companies often, and companies do this themselves as well, is if you ask those 3 questions when you're designing new, whether it's for your own internal community or for your customers or stakeholders, and ask people, well, what does it look like when this works? I guarantee we'll get fixes really easily. And the other part of that is just expect to change your system by about 5 to 10%. Look at normalised behaviour, and then look at how much we just need to nudge that. And you don't need to nudge by a lot if we're focusing on normalised behaviour. If we ask teams what the roadblocks are for them and how they might look to fix this rather than coming in with a solution from the outside.
All right, great.
I think, can I just add to the kind of for the workspace question? I mean, I think, all of us in this room are passionate about the social justice space and what we can do to support people. And I think it's really important that we see our own role in supporting people to access technology. This is not just about tech. I mean, it's great that we've got so many people at this wonderful conference, but it's called Tech for Social Justice, right? And so we don't have all of the other people that actually are the ones that are supporting people day to day to use that technology. Yeah. So, I'm extremely passionate, having come from the social justice, having been a family support worker, having, a brother who has multiple disability support workers that support him every day. I'm passionate about making sure those people feel confident to help people to use technology. That's part of their job in supporting people to access community, is how they support people to use tech. And it doesn't mean that you have to be an expert, and I know that there needs to be support around that for people, and I do not want to add one more thing onto people's jobs, but they're already doing it, and we need to make sure that they're really supported to do that well. So that's definitely one of the areas that I think is really essential, is that we're supporting the supporters to know what they need to do and how they do it safely, actually. So I think that's kind of one of my passion projects, and I think how we support people, not just to have the skills themselves to use the technology that we're all implementing in our organisations, but then how do we support them to make sure that they are supporting the people that they serve to access tech like everybody does.
That's great. In the time we've got left, I think we're not going to solve it today, but I'd like to have a bit of a discussion at a high, maybe a policy level, what we think needs to occur. I'm glad that that's your passion project, because I think in this space, my passion project is to get some national accountability on digital inclusion.
I'm with you on that.
More broadly. If we're talking 24% of the population, I mean, there's going to be people within that who are able to engage one way or another. But it's still large amounts of people, and I'll ask you about the economic benefits you guys have looked at as well, Jess. But it is a fragmented sector. I mean, ADIA has 750 members, dozens of whom are organisations doing terrific stuff. There is good stuff happening through governments as well, but it's across multiple state departments, it's across multiple federal government departments. No one's actually in charge coordinating that. There have been multiple calls for strategies. I'm not sure calling for strategies necessarily, likely to gather you much joy. But what can we do to step forward to one is maybe a good way to thinking about it. There are good signs. We had the New South Wales government announcement last week. There's a great template that's come out of the UK. Manisha, maybe to you first. What are your views on how we can, I guess, create some better coordination across what is a pretty fragmented space?
I think that the world is becoming more complex, and technology is complex, adaptive, non-linear and ambiguous. And the way that we work in our businesses and society, in Western society, is actually hierarchical, linear, and focuses on certainty and control. Those two things don't actually work together anymore. right? So we actually need to look for different systems, different ways of governance, different ways of actually supporting people, understanding that it's not one size fits all anymore. And I think personally, the people we need to go to are our First Nations communities. We need to go to Indigenous communities that have worked in complex, adaptive, non-linear relational systems for millennia, you know, and go, how might we use this way of thinking to actually create the world that we need for the future? And I think ADIA has taken some steps in this way. It's not about one size fits all. You know, it's not about the checklist. It's about the relationship, and it's about recognizing we're all not going to have the same opinion on something. And is that okay? Like, can we actually just have different opinions but still want the right thing for all of us? So that's, I think, the future opportunity if we choose to grapple with it.
I love that as a sort of philosophical framing. What can we do practically, Jess?
There you go.
I mean, I think having a strategy. I mean, I've been calling for a strategy, as you know, for so long,
We've all done it.
everybody. I mean, it was great to have one in New South Wales. It's really good to see the progress in the UK, having that come out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's about talking people's language, right? So I think, you know, that's why we did the economic benefit report, because it says that actually conservatively, it is worth $500 million, close to $500 million a year to the economy, to make sure that people are digitally included. So it's not just about social justice, it's about the economy. So how do we speak to people in the language that they need to hear? And how do we learn the lessons from others? So I think, you know, clearly the New South Wales government last week was saying this is a starting point, it's not an end point. And, you know, they did talk about a device bank, so that's fantastic, great to have, but, you know, we also need to make sure there's money behind it. And making sure that everybody in government, corporates, community sector, you know, the community itself are all saying this is important to make sure no one gets left behind. So I think that's the key, is making sure that people understand that it's an issue and that they can help us solve it.
Yeah, that's great. And as I say, you'll be hearing more from ADIA on that, on the key points. I mean, we want to create accountability. We want to see some investment in coordination. And we, as I was describing, we think there's going to be a much bigger focus needed around ability, particularly with the potentials and the challenges around AI as well. The clock says we're done.
We're done, yeah.
The guys, listen
already
to
red.
the air conditioning up here is awesome now.
You're feeling much better now, it's great.
Hey, thank you so much for your contributions.
Thanks
It's
very
been
much.
great to chat.
Thank